So picture this. You're scrolling through Truth Social, minding your own business, maybe looking at cat videos or what your uncle had for dinner. Then, bam, Donald Trump, yes, that Donald Trump drops a bombshell. He's thinking out loud and very publicly about slapping a hefty 25% tariff on Apple iPhones. Why? Because in his view, these shiny gadgets we all love should be made right here in the good old US of A. It's like your dad saying you can only eat cookies if you bake them yourself, but on a global economic scale. It's a big statement, a bold move, and everyone's like, wait, what now? When Trump talks tariffs, people listen, especially businesses like Apple. A 25% tariff is a huge deal. Think about how much an iPhone already costs. Now add a quarter of that price on top. Ouch. His message is pretty clear. Apple, you've got a choice. Either bring those iPhone factories home to America, or get ready for some serious import taxes. It's a classic Trump move, really. Go big, make some noise, and try to shake things up. The announcement, as you can imagine, sent ripples through the tech world and beyond. Financial analysts started crunching numbers faster than you can say supply chain. And regular folks, well, we just started wondering if our next phone upgrade was going to require a small bank loan. One thing's for sure. It's got everyone talking, and that's often part of the strategy. Now, if this talk of tariffs sounds familiar, it's because we've been here before. During his presidency, Donald Trump wasn't shy about using tariffs. It was like his favorite economic tool. Think of it as his go-to move, like a superhero's signature punch, but instead of fighting supervillains, he was fighting what he called unfair trade deals. He slapped tariffs on all sorts of things: steel from China, aluminum from Canada, even washing machines from South Korea. His main argument was always that other countries were taking advantage of the United States. He believed they were selling their goods too cheaply here, hurting American companies and causing American jobs to disappear. So, the tariffs were meant to level the playing field to make imported goods more expensive. The hope was that this would encourage people to buy American-made products instead. It was all part of his Make America Great Again slogan, trying to bring manufacturing back to the US and protect domestic industries from foreign competition. Some American industries like steel did see a bit of a boost, but other industries, especially those that relied on imported parts, found themselves paying more. And guess who often ends up paying those extra costs? That's right, you, the consumer. So, when Trump talks about tariffs on iPhones now, in 2025, it's not coming out of nowhere. Okay, so Trump says, make iPhones in America. Sounds simple, right? Like, just pack up the factory from China and move it to, say, Ohio. Well, hold your horses, because it's about as easy as teaching a cat to play the ukulele. Manufacturing iPhones is an incredibly complex operation. We're talking about a global puzzle with millions of tiny, intricate pieces. It's not just one factory, it's a whole ecosystem of suppliers, specialized labor, and logistical networks that has been built up over decades, mostly in Asia. Think about Foxconn City in China. It's literally a city built around making electronics, especially Apple products. They have hundreds of thousands of skilled workers, massive assembly lines, and everything is perfectly coordinated. Recreating something like that in the United States would be a monumental task. You'd need to build giant new factories from scratch. You'd need to train a massive workforce with very specific skills. And you'd need to convince all those hundreds of component suppliers who make everything from the screen to the tiniest chip to also move or find new American partners. Then there's the issue of infrastructure. China has invested heavily in roads, ports, and power grids that support these massive manufacturing hubs. The US has infrastructure, of course, but is it ready for this kind of highly concentrated, super efficient electronics manufacturing on such a scale? So, while Made in USA sounds great, the reality of making it happen for iPhones is a whole different ballgame. Let's imagine, just for a second, that Apple says, "Okay, Donald, you win. We'll make iPhones in America." They wave a magic wand, overcome all those huge challenges we just talked about, and voila! American-made iPhones start rolling off the assembly line. Sounds like a patriotic dream come true, right? Well, that dream might come with a pretty hefty price tag, because one of the biggest reasons iPhones are made in Asia, and particularly China, is cost. The first big factor is labor costs. Simply put, workers in the US generally earn higher wages and have more benefits than workers in many parts of Asia where iPhones are currently assembled. That's a good thing for American workers, obviously. But for a company like Apple trying to keep costs down, it means each iPhone would cost significantly more to make. We're talking about a difference that could add a substantial amount to the final price of the phone. So your fancy new American-made iPhone might require you to skip a few fancy dinners or maybe a vacation. Then there are the infrastructure and setup costs. Building those massive new factories we mentioned, that's billions of dollars. Training tens of thousands of new workers, more billions. Reconfiguring the entire supply chain to work in a new country, you guessed it, billions and billions. So, even if Apple managed to pull off this manufacturing miracle, the American-made iPhone would almost certainly be much more expensive. Section 5. Apple versus the Tariff Man, a high-stakes showdown. So, we have Trump threatening a 25% tariff, and we have Apple, one of the biggest, most powerful companies in the world. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Or in this case, when a determined tariff enthusiast meets a tech giant that really likes its current manufacturing setup? It's shaping up to be quite the showdown, like a corporate wrestling match, but with more spreadsheets and fewer spandex outfits. Apple has a few cards it can play, and you can bet they're looking at all their options very carefully right now. First, Apple could try to absorb the cost of the tariff. They make a lot of money on each iPhone, so theoretically they could just eat that 25% themselves and not raise prices for consumers. This would protect their customers from sticker shock and keep iPhone sales chugging along. But 25% is a big chunk of profit. Doing this would make their shareholders very unhappy, and unhappy shareholders can make life very difficult for a CEO. Another option for Apple is negotiation. Donald Trump famously loves to make deals. He sees himself as the ultimate negotiator, so Apple could go to him or his team and try to work something out. Maybe they could promise to invest more in US research and development, or create some other types of jobs in America in exchange for avoiding the full brunt of the iPhone tariff. It would be a high-stakes negotiation, with billions of dollars on the line. Section 6. Your next iPhone, now with extra tariff topping. Let's get down to brass tacks. What does this mean for you, the iPhone user? If tariffs happen, your next iPhone could be significantly more expensive. Think of it as an unwanted, pricey accessory, the Trump tariff topping. It doesn't make your phone faster, but it sure makes your wallet lighter. If Apple can't absorb the tariff, they'll pass the cost to consumers. An iPhone that costs $1,000 today could cost $1,100 or more. For many, this could push the latest iPhone out of reach. This price hike could affect Apple's entire product range. iPads, Apple Watches, even MacBooks could see price increases. If the flagship product gets pricier, other products often follow suit. Trump's tariff grand plan. It's not just about your phone, it's not just about Apple or your smartphone. It's a broader economic philosophy. Tariffs are a tool to protect American industries and jobs. The iPhone is just one piece of the puzzle. He talks about fair trade, not free trade. Tariffs aim to rebalance trade. He sees them as leverage. The goal is to make America a manufacturing powerhouse again. Section 8. Global trade tremors. When tariffs shake the world. When a massive economy like the United States starts making big moves with tariffs, it's not just a domestic issue. It sends tremors across the entire global economy. Think of it like throwing a big rock into a calm pond. The ripples spread far and wide, affecting everyone. Businesses around the world, not just in the US or China, rely on predictable trade rules and stable supply chains. When the threat of new tariffs looms, or when existing tariffs are suddenly changed, it creates a lot of uncertainty, and businesses really hate uncertainty. It makes planning for the future incredibly difficult. Global supply chains like the one that produces iPhones are incredibly intricate networks that have been built up over many years. They are designed to be efficient and cost-effective. Tariffs can throw a giant wrench into these delicate systems. Companies might have to scramble to find new suppliers, reroute shipments, or even consider moving factories, all of which costs time and money. This disruption isn't just an inconvenience, it can lead to delays, shortages of goods, and as we've seen, higher prices for consumers everywhere, not just in the country imposing the tariffs. Moreover, tariffs are rarely a one-way street. If the US puts tariffs on goods from another country, that country is very likely to retaliate by putting tariffs on American goods. Section 9, the big question, mark iPhone's prices and our future sanity. Here we are in mid-2025 with Donald Trump's 25% iPhone tariff threat. What happens next? Well, if there's one thing that's certain, it's uncertainty. It's like a season finale, a big cliffhanger. The first big question is whether Trump can implement such a policy. The threat itself makes companies like Apple very nervous. If Trump gains the power, will he go through with it? He might pressure Apple into investing more in US manufacturing, or he might be serious about the 25% tariff. For us, the consumers, the questions are more personal. Will our next iPhone cost an arm and a leg?